I wanted to go through the next fleeces in my queue that I'm going to be working on. So I sold, I don't know, like 45 fleeces to hand spinners a couple weeks ago. And now I'm working on the fleeces that are left, and I'm working on them because I just didn't feel like they were the quality that I'd be comfortable offering to a hand spinner for a variety of reasons. So I'm going to go through 3 of them that I'm going to be working on in the next couple weeks. The first fleece I have is from our ewe Ilara. Ilara is a white ewe. She is 6 years old, and normally with sheep as they age their fleeces get coarser, but we're breeding for ewes who as they age their fleeces stay the same. And so we actually purchased Ilara. She's not one of our breeding. She has a spinning fineness of 21.1 at 6 years old, which is pretty remarkable. So the reason I did not offer this fleece to hand spinners was I wasn't happy with the shearing quality. So she was one of the ewes I had sheared. She doesn't rue easily. And I just felt like there was a little bit more of the second cut than I was happy with. There goes the bag. It's really blustery today. But on second observation, maybe I could have offered it. So here's what I'm going to do with this fleece from our Ilara. I guess there's a little bit of some. I'm going to break this up into 1 ounce packets. Yeah, I guess I was correct with my decision here as I see little bits and pieces flying off. When I make the 1 ounce packets, I'll just make sure that those won't have any of the second cuts, neps or pills or anything. So that's what I'll do. And then the balance of it, the stuff that does have issues, maybe I'll wash it for myself. It's a gorgeous fleece, very lustrous. She's a really beautiful girl. There's a lock of her wool. Nice crimp, a little bit bolder than what we're breeding for, and her breech is different from the balance of her fleece. So you can see the breech has got a really bold crimp. To me, those look like they're very different. So, she's older in our breeding program. So that's Ilara, so I'm gonna work on that. 1 ounce raw packets, and then any of the parts of her that I see is problematic, I'll process them myself. The next fleece is from our ewe Koki. And Koki is a fawn cat mugget. So Koki, like I said, she's 4. She has a spinning fineness of 21.2. The reason I didn't sell Koki's fleece is that the staple length is less than 2 inches. So any fleeces that get in the sale by my standards has to be more than 2 inches. Now, I sheared Koki also, but as I look at her out in the barn, she definitely could have been rude because the wool is coming off of her now. So she hit the rise later than everybody else. So she's got this really super fine fleece, but the staple length is just a little bit on the short side, except for when we approach the breech. So yeah, so fawn, super short staple, very nicely defined tip. So I think you can, if you're a regular viewer, I think you're gonna guess where I'm going with this one. This is gonna go into a bumbly yarn. And I didn't skirt it too much just because I knew that I was keeping it. So she actually still has her neck wool And so what I will likely do, since her neck wool has slightly better lengths, is I'll likely flick card or comb the neck wool and use that as the lace ply that I put on my bumbly yarns. Now see, Koki's breech versus Koki's neck. If I were looking at these two locks, I wouldn't know which came from which part of the body. That's another thing I'm breeding for, is very consistent from neck to breech. There's always going to be a little variation just because that's the nature of the beast, but you can get it so that the majority of the fleece is consistent. So I know some people like Shetlands because you get all different types of wool in one fleece. So those people are not gonna like what I'm doing, which is trying to get it all the same. So yeah, definitely a bumbly fleece. Then also next year I'll make a note that I'm going to rue Koki, and I'll get a longer staple then, and she then might be available for hand spinning raw fleece. So that's Koki. So all of these fleeces are ones I'm hoping to work on in the next few days. Get them washed and on the table or whatever, get them on the spinning wheel or whatever. So I just wanted to say I'm on our back porch here, which we just built recently. And the sheep are on the front pasture today. We call this the front pasture. It's the northernmost. It's the one they're on all winter, and it's the one that we put them on at first in the spring. And we like this pasture because we can keep an eye on everything. So it makes sense in the spring when the lambs are born. We can see every angle, and we have a camera that's behind the barn. So we like that. We're doing that today because Rich and I are going out tonight and spending the night in a hotel. And so our son is going to do chores for us, which in the summer is just getting them in the barn. And it's a lot easier getting them in the barn when they're on this front pasture than it is to get them on the barn when they're in that enormous far south pasture. Last night I was bringing them in because they were out in the way far south pasture. And Eleanor's two little ewe lambs, were just off by themselves. Everybody else was in the barn. I heard them crying, so I walked out there, and I had to actually walk all that way and just kind of nudge them in to the barn. I just thought it was really funny that Eleanor actually was in the barn already. But she's old hat. She's like, yeah, they'll get there eventually. It's really funny. All right, so the next fleece I want to work on is Matilda's, and that's just mainly because she's in the brown-based group. Now, Matilda's a spotted ewe, and her spots cover the body. And if you know me, you know that's something I really don't like. I find sorting fleece by color to be very fiddly, and I don't like it. Last year, I sold Matilda's fleece, but this year I didn't like her shearing quality. She doesn't rue. I tried rueing her, and it just didn't work. Now, she might rue because this year she had lambs. So I got to go out and check her. She's got a scraggly coat right now, and I'm checking to rue because if that is the case and she has lambs next year, then I'll certainly rue her to get that really nice staple that I like. Her spinning fineness was 22.2, a little bit higher than the first two that we looked at. I like the staple length on Matilda, and Rich likes spotted sheep just because they're so cool looking. For me as the spinner of the equation, not a fan. But I love Matilda dearly. She's a very sweet girl, very friendly and affectionate, and maybe a little demanding at times, but she's a good girl. All right, so here we are looking at Matilda. Yeah, and I just didn't like it. Didn't like how she sheared. Let's see. So you can see she's got, this is hard to do in the wind like this. Hoping the audio isn't terrible. There was a lot of this everywhere, and that's not acceptable. For me, I don't mind it. I'll just comb it out and it'll get waste. This reminds me of those cookies, the half and half cookies, they're frosted. I don't know what they're called. So she's got sort of a creamy white portion of the fleece. Nice crimp. It's going to be nice. And then she also has this really nice dark moret portion. So what I'll do with her fleece is I'll wash it. These sections where the both colors meet, that'll go on as fawn. So hopefully I'll get 1 ounce of the fawn, and then I'll comb and drum card the white, and then the moret I will probably do later when I'm doing the moret wool on the drum carder. So those are the fleeces I'm working on right now, and next thing I want to show you is take you down onto my processing table, some of the fleeces I'm flicking and combing right now. So I'm here at my carding table. This is where I do all my flick carding and my combing. It's in our basement, and I call it the wool cave. It's not finished, so it's a little bit rustic, but it's nice down here for me. So I just wanted to talk a little bit today about the stuff I'm working on at the processing table. And the first thing I want to show you is this is some fawn neck wool. Now, neck wool is when I'm skirting the fleeces for hand spinners, I remove the neck wool because it's not covered by the coat and it gets extremely dirty. So you can see all the bits of hay in this neck wool. And the wool is really nice, it's really soft. Usually the worst part as far as having a lot of VM and stuff is at the back of the neck, which is where other sheep are eating over top of them and getting hay. A lot of the times this portion is pretty clean, but still has more VM than what I like to provide to hand spinners. This particular piece of neck wool, so the neck wool does come in sections after I pull it out of the bag, because when I'm skirting, I'll just take the neck wool, put it in a neck wool bag, and then afterwards I sort it by color and whatnot. This year actually I put quite a bit of neck wool directly into the mill processed bags to get made into comb top. And late breaking news, I'm also going to be offering roving this year, so I'll be doing a different segment later on about the differences and stuff, but suffice it to say, a lot of neck wool this year went into the mill processed bag. So I only saved the ones that as I was working through them I particularly liked, and there were quite a few fawn neck wools that I liked, and this one I liked because I liked this. It's got a taupey, kind of a mocha color to it. Nice crimp, really nice length. And so I decided to turn this into bats. And this is the basket of fiber combed up. There's some light sections to this neck, and then there's some darker sections. So there's a little bit of difference. But like I said, really nice staple length. And those I'm drum carding. So this is the 1 ounce hand processed bat where I flick it out, collect a bunch of locks, and then I'll put them on my drum carder to make these 1 ounce bats. So I'm hoping to get maybe 4 or 5 of this color. And I don't know for sure who it's from, but I suspect it's from Susan, because Susan has that really pretty, just like latte color about her that I really like. So I'm working on that. And I do keep the neck wool separate, so I wouldn't mix this one, which I know is a distinct section, with any of the other neck wool sections that I've washed. So that I'm finishing up. This little patch here is from Liana, which I made into bats. It's a ewe that she's with another farm now, but I bought her fleece, and sometimes I'll buy them, and depending on what they're like, I'll either put them in the mill processing or I'll process them myself. This one I am actually processing myself. And she's like a really pretty light fawn, but she does have some darker bits. And here's a nice staple of her. I love her, and in fact I was thinking about buying her back, but when I looked at her fleece, she did have, it's lovely, I love it, but there is a lot of variation front to back, neck to middle, and I think that's probably why she got selected for placing with another farm that doesn't have that same criteria as I do. But it's nice, and all of her bats that I've made so far have sold. So probably what I'm going to do with this is I need some fiber for my self-striping yarns, and so probably this little patch will go into that for the fawn. I could probably get 2 colors out of this because there is a big range, dark to very light. All right, so that's that one. This is part of that too. So those are the 2 that I'm working on right now, and let me I'll just do a quick demo of my flicking. Where was that section that I just pulled out to show you? Yes, particularly nice. So I used to golf when I was in the corporate world, badly. And I bought this glove a long time ago, so I put it on backwards because this little knuckle here rubs against the wood of the flicker. And after, 7 hours of flicking, it gets a little raw. So that's what I do. Okay, and then I'm just going to the camera angle's not perfect for this, but get the idea. Flick both sides. Get this lovely triangle flick block. There she is, beautiful. So I will, if I were going to spin this, I would spin it myself right from the lock. I wouldn't put it on the drum carder, but because I'm offering this to other hand spinners in prepped form, I will be putting this one on the drum carder. So this is a bunch of neck wool that I've washed. Isn't it sickening how lucky I am? Oh my gosh. So yeah, so here's just a bunch of different ones. This one is really nice. It's a dark taupey, really soft and crimpy. No idea who this one is from. I can't even guess. It's definitely going to be one of my younger ones. I can just tell by the way it feels. As our breeding program gets more and more closer to our dream goal, the newer ones are a lot more squishy and spongy. So that's that. And then, what else is there in here? This is a really big one, so it's leading me to think it might be tie. I don't know for sure, but it's a sheared, this is all one neck. It's sheared, the staple length is long, and it looks like tie's lock structure. It's huge. Beautiful. Definitely going to be flicking it and drum carding it to make, oh my gosh, bats. Oh, beautiful. So yeah, I think that that is tie. Here's another section, I don't even know. Definitely sheared. That might actually, it looks like that's part of her too. Then here's another little bit from somebody. I can't place it though, unfortunately. It's dark. It looks like this flat section here looks like the part of the neck that gets right up against the coat. That pretty taupe color, but this isn't the same as that other one because it's softer. No idea. Now this one, I have a pretty good idea. This is from my Mabel. It's another blob. So Mabel, I rued. So there's a couple reasons why I think it's Mabel. It's rude, obviously. I remember ruing her and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so nice. It can't go into comb top. She's right up there with what I want in a hue that's producing fiber for hand spinners. Oh boy. So Mabel is Morit, right? But she's actually got a big white spot on her. And the white spot is a very pretty creamy white. So I break my whites up into blue white and brown white, creamy white, and this one is a creamy from Mabel. So this will get me a lot of bats. I'm really looking forward to working on this one because I love to work on rude fleeces, and it's just so special. This must be when I was ruining her, it probably fell on the floor off of the stand. And then there's just this cute little patch of brown. It is probably up closer to her face because she's got this little brown patch right here. Love it. Love it. So that's all the stuff that's washed and ready for me to process. And then I just had one other thing I wanted to show you, and that is this basket of Gilly. The water out of the way. Now Gilly did not shear well. She was another one I sheared, and as I'm looking at her, probably could have rued her, which I'm going to do a lot more ruing next year. I'm determined. So this is all from Gilly, and it's all rather short. Now I flicked a lot of it because it was long enough for me to get some good flicking volume. But it's just a little on the short side, unstretched. Now obviously when I stretch it out, it's nice and probably 3 inches when it's stretched. But just short and really uneven shearing, like there's some short bits and longer bits and whatnot. So Gilly was one that I processed. I think it was the first one that I washed from this year, actually. I got 2 1-ounce bats out of Gilly. The rest of this I'm gonna comb and then probably spin it, because I did make a skein from her, so this was the leftover of what I had that I'm going to fill that up with this, but I'm gonna comb this. So I just wanna show you I do a hybrid combing and flicking method that's really probably weird, but it's what I like. So, and I don't use the Magic Craft has the comb set, which is actually what I have. So it has this base and you can clamp it on your table. I used to use that, now I don't. I just use it with my hands open. I don't know what the right words are for that, but you know what I mean. Well, you'll see what I mean in a second here. So now I'm just gonna lash the fiber on. Much of it is still in its lock form, so I can, grab it by the tip, but if it isn't, I just kind of do the best I can, eyeballing it to make sure that I have it lined up. That's good enough for what I want to show you. And then I just do the traditional combing. I don't spray or anything. If it gets staticky, there's enough grease still in my wool because of the way I wash it that if I just do this, my hands are greasy and it sort of holds it down. Now, I don't like pulling it off the comb. I find that very tedious and fiddly. And so what I do is I take it off the comb, grab the loose end, and then flick on. And it's probably extra work, but it's just what I like. And I'm so used to spinning from the lock anyway. So that's a nice little tiny bit, and then this gives me more. I don't load up the combs too much because flicking this much is a little bit hard to get all the way to the center of all this mess here. So it's kind of a hybrid, very unconventional, but works for me. It's probably generating more waste than you would expect from combing, but I don't know. So here's some of that. So Gilly's really light. She's a very light fawn ewe. Really love her. I love them all. So I'm gonna spin the rest of this after I get finished. Well, I'll probably comb and spin as I go, because I do alternate work because my arms and hands get tired over a period of time. So this is stuff that I'm combing right now. I brought this with me. I had a fiber festival this last weekend, and I brought this with me and was using it to demonstrate both flicking and combing to anybody that was interested. So that worked out really nicely. So that's it. So what I'll do with all this waste, this is all my flicking and combing waste, I'm gonna drum card that on my Fusion engine to get bats, and then I'm gonna make wool balls from that. So I did quilt batting last year with my scraps, and it came out really nice. I don't know how to mark it to quilters, so I'm gonna just turn it into wool balls. And then I'll use the wool balls for either selling as dryer balls, or I'll make them into little sheep felting kits, which is really fun. All right, so that's what's happening on the prep side of the wool cave. Now I'm gonna take you over and we're gonna do some spinning. So I'm on my old vintage rows right now, and on this wheel I wanted to show you spinning Gilly. So this is the fiber that I'm combing the short staple length that actually, once you've combed it, has a fairly nice staple length. So Magic Craft offers an orifice tool, very Magic Crafty with the remove wood, which is nice. But my friend Cindy, the one that has the Cormos, makes these, which I think are kind of cool. She makes the little balls, or maybe your husband makes the balls, I can't remember. So I'm going to use that today, and I'm also going to provide a link in the video to her website if anybody would like to get an orifice threader like this one. So I'm taking this off. This is the lace weight Perdita, so we'll put that over there. This is the Gilly. So this is the new black plastic bobbin. We've seen this before. Nice and light. Putting that on my old rose, the old vintage rose. Should be using the new one, but I just like this one better. I'm using the standard E-flyer, which has the closed orifice, the closed guides with ceramic lining, and then I think this is the I can't remember which hook it is. Might be the 8mm hook, and I've lost my rubber tip. But there is a rubber tip that goes on there. So this is Gilly that I was already spinning, so I already have a skein of Gilly in my shop. I'm just going to spin up the balance of the fiber, like I said, using the combed method. Now Gilly looks white, right, at face value when you're just looking at this fiber. But if you look very closely, there are little tiny brown flecks, which gives it that very pretty oatmeal-y appearance. So here's that combed fiber, ready to spin. And like I said, because I prefer to spin from the locks, I don't make little nests and diz off the fiber from my comb. I just do this. There's a little bit of hay. I have a new rose that goes with me to shows, but most of my production work I do on this older one, just because I feel this weird sense of loyalty to her. So this is me spinning. It spins up super easy. It's almost spinning itself. And I'll keep working on this. This will be what I spin. I don't know. I'm not really binging anything right now. I just finished binging Frankie and Gracie with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda. It was spectacular. I enjoyed it so much. So I'm looking for something new to binge, actually. And because we just so recently got high-speed internet, there's, stuff for me to binge that's extremely old that I'm getting to. The Crown, for example. Enjoyed that very much. And I guess the benefit for me is that I don't have to wait for each season. I can just go and stream it right through. I kind of don't want to stop spinning this, but I wanted to show you some other stuff. All right, so that is my rose with Gilly using the standard E-flyer and the standard black plastic bobbin. And I'm using, it was on the largest whorl you can get, and I have it on the second smallest groove in the drive band. So a fairly low ratio. So the next spin I'm gonna do is on my Magic Craft Aura spinning wheel. And I selected that because it's kind of like an art yarn. And the Aura is designed for art yarns with the bigger flyer, bigger bobbin, the strong take up, the double drive so that you don't have to adjust your settings like you do with the Scotch tension. So what I'm making is one of those bumbly yarns, I call them, with wool from RU Ophelia. And Ophelia was a lamb last year. She's now a yearling, and I rood her, and her staple length is very short. The full rood staple is just not very long when it's not stretched out. So, and the tip is very curly and adorable. And so I am going to spin this with this technique that the curly tips stick out from the yarn. So I'm really only drafting to separate the base of the lock and trying to keep the lock formation intact. One thing I did that I've learned makes it easier is I have pulled little strips of the fleece, keeping, you know, the locks in place so that it's just easier to draft. So it's kind of like pre-drafting, I guess, but it just makes it a lot easier so that you're not trying to reduce the amount of locks that get through with the whole fleece, which is what I was doing originally. So I've upgraded my technique a little bit here. And I have it set on the loosest bobbin band setting, so my tension is fairly low. I have my head up a little bit higher, so I am feeling some good pull, so that's another reason why I set it lower. And my head is all the way down. And then I'm on I think I'm on the second whirl. So, and this is using the jumbo wood bobbin. This is the Aura Hybrid Flyer. I'm actually bypassing the Delta orifice this time. And then it's a 24 millimeter hook that comes with the wheel standard. This all comes standard with the Aura. So I'm just gonna get started here. And Ophelia is a darling. She's a very, very sweet girl. Her spinning fineness is, I think it's 22.1. For a lamb, that's a little bit on the high side for us. So it's possible Ophelia will be going to a different farm this year to live out her days. And whoever gets her is extremely lucky because she is a dear, very sweet and loving, and always says hello in the morning when I go in there. I don't spin on the Aura as much as I ought to. I don't know why. I think it's just because, you know, having all these wheels around, I don't have enough space for them all to be set up and ready to use. So a lot of times the Aura is packed up. See how I made this into a nice long strip. And I take this yarn, and I have a hat I make with it that is just lovely. It's nice and bouncy and warm. And then it's got all these cute little tendrils sticking out of it every random place. So with the yarn I make, I sell the yarn in my booth or on my shop. There's a pattern, very simple, just a brimless hat. It's 2.4 ounces. And Ophelia was rude and coated, and this is her lamb fleece, so it's pretty much just as perfect as it could be. So I'm working on this. It shouldn't take me that long to get through it. And that'll be one skein. It'll go maybe like 3/4 of the bobbin full, and that'll give me enough to do a nice skein of yarn. So the next thing I need to do is I need to spin up the longer pieces of Ophelia that I've already flicked into a lace weight yarn, and I'm going to do that on my little gem. I made a video within the last year about how you can make a art yarn with your little gem with the right accessories. And so I thought it would be fun to make a lace weight yarn using the lace accessories on my little gem. So that's what we're gonna do. So I just loosened up my latch there and then tighten it. I gotta get my drive band out of there. I'm getting more adept at this, at using my little gem. All right. Then you install the stem. Tighten that. Then you have to put your drive band on. This is the upper. So there's two drive bands with a little gem. An upper, which looks like their regular drive band, and the lower, which is this very thick band. There's a pulley there. Comes off the back on the left, and I always have to double check to make sure. Yeah. Okay, so there's my little gem all assembled. So this is the little gem with its little gem pulley. I don't have the bobbin obviously because I'm going to be using the lace bobbin. This is the older lace bobbin. I'm just using it because I have it here. It's ready to go, so put that on. I'm going to tighten up the brake band quite a bit. Install the lace flyer, which is a lot smaller than your standard flyer. Has a much smaller bar so that it's closer to the bobbin, and the bobbin has a fat core. So it's about reducing the distance the fiber has to travel, as well as minimizing your inertia. Okay, so now I'm going to change my whirl to the high-speed whirl. Smaller the whirl, the faster your flyer is going to rotate. And it's about, the ratio is the number of revolutions your flyer has for every one revolution of your drive wheel. Go to the left. If you don't change your pulley a lot, the first time you do it can be a little nerve-wracking because you're afraid you're going to break it, but you won't. That was a pretty loud snap it just made. Loosen the grub screw enough so that you can just slide it off. Leave the grub screw in there so you don't lose it. And then with the lace kit comes the fast pulley. Make sure that it is out so you don't scratch up your shaft, and then look for the flat. Line it up. You don't have to line up with the rows and the Susie and stuff. You got to line up the grooves. You've only got one drive band groove, so we don't have that issue here. Tighten it to the right. Okay. And there we have the little gem. ready to go. Okay. It really goes. That lace kit really zips along. So the lace flyer also has all closed orifices, so we're going to have to use our tool. Not sure where my start is on this. It's good enough. So with the lace spinning, you can send it through this guide as well. I'm not going to, I don't normally. We'll see if I change my mind once we get cracking here. And the lace kit, the design here is so that you can apply a ton of twist, so it grabs up a very small amount of fiber in your drafting zone to make a, you know, really super fine. I'm not going for super fine here. Increase my tension because it's not pulling. Here I go. Now, you're going to hear some sounds. You're hearing a rattling sound. That is the bobbin rotating freely on the flyer shaft. It has to do that. It has to be free, and so it's going to bounce back and forth a little bit. That's not a problem. And the faster that you're spinning, the more you're going to notice it. I've found. That's been my experience. You don't have that dynamic on the Aura because the pins are what rotates the bobbin with that double drive system. But with a Scotch tension, your bobbin is going to be free on the flyer. The other sound we're hearing is a little whirring sound. Put my mic up there. That is the brake band rubbing up against the bobbin. Again, it's not a problem. It's just what it sounds like. And every so often because of the way the treadle is designed, and I'm not really used to the little gem, and I'm not really sitting square here. I'm skipping a little bit, but eventually I'll get used to it. They say if you have issues treadling with your little gem, move your feet up on the treadles a little bit. So these are the 3 projects that spinning projects that I've got going right now. So it's pretty nice. I was at a point there in the winter where I was out of stuff to spin, so I was kind of at a loss, and I usually don't spin anything other than my own fiber. So it feels pretty good to be back spinning again. So hey, thanks for watching. It's great to have you back here with me, and I will see you next week. Thanks.